and particularly something I'm actually very particular about or interested in, the role technology actually has to play too when you think about menstrual health, especially within the Black community.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tosin, for doing that and for starting off our live stream with such an amazing takeaway. And so for those of you who are watching, welcome to the Black Menstrual Health Virtual Summit. We are Sanicle. We are a community and we are passionate about making a difference. And so today we are talking about all things menstrual health. We are talking about all things maternal health and mental health. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. May is Menstrual Health Awareness Month. And we are here to really bridge the taboo topic between ending period poverty and all things related. So my name is Zaakirah and I am the Chief Marketing Officer and I am working with the events. So you may see my face and my name and a lot of things happening all at once. It made this event possible. So and this event would not be possible if it wasn't for you for watching and for attending. And so today is going to be an interesting day because we're going to talk about what people don't often get to talk about, right? And so it's a unique perspective to be able to bring men and women together to talk about menstrual health, because what happens to be able to end period poverty is because of raising awareness, having those initial conversations. And that's what we're going to do today. So today's virtual summit is going to be part panel and it's going to be a part world premiere of a roundtable video. And so I'm just starting off because I am here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, representing Sanicle, which is a femtech social impact startup. And so we focus on bridging those taboo conversations through all means necessary, whether that is through a book, such as the Period Passport, which is a FAQ guide for dads, especially teenage girls who are just starting off their period. You can find the Period Passport on our website, which is sanicle.us. Or you can find it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Walmart, anywhere you get your books, paperback and audiobooks. We also raise awareness by also having a subscription box. So you may or may not be able to see the subscription box because of our wonderful background that we got going on. But this big box, if you see both of my hands, it's a pretty big box. And in that box has all the things that most women need to be able to have their menstrual cycle with ease. So that includes your pads or your tampons or your liners. That includes being able to have some chocolate. Sometimes you kind of need a little bit of chocolate just to fulfill those cravings, and many, many more items that are in that box. And last but not least, community. One of the biggest reasons why we're having this event is to continue to raise awareness and bring people together to have a safe space to really have that conversation. And so I also have polycystic ovarian syndrome. I was diagnosed with my menstrual cycle at the age of 8. And so one of my symptoms because of polycystic ovarian syndrome is a deep voice. It has to do with the hormones kind of being in balance. And it also has to do with having irregular menstrual cycles. So sometimes you may be around your sisters, your partners, your co-workers who like clockwork. You know it when it's that time of the month for them. They have this running joke called Aunt Flo. But for those who have polycystic ovarian syndrome or even endometriosis, it may or may not come every single month. The longest my menstrual cycle has not come, the longest I have not had Aunt Red come visit has been almost a year. And sometimes, yes, sometimes that actually happens. No, it's not normal. No, it's not okay. But guess what? We have so many tools out there, lots of technology, especially forums, especially community groups, Facebook groups, to really kind of be that support, that emotional support system when it comes to all kinds of menstrual cycles, not just the ones that you're used to and ones that are taboo, the ones that we make jokes about. And so that's what this conversation is going to be about today. And so you're going to hear from our host, Priscilla, who's really going to take the floor because we're going to have amazing speakers here today. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce Priscilla. And so Priscilla Siwela, she is based in Texas and she's originally from Zimbabwe. And so she is our host today and she's very active. She's a huge social media influencer and she's a huge social media advocate for making a positive difference in this world and helping those in need. And she's been dedicated to making sure that women especially are comfortable in their own body. So her commitment to social justice extends beyond the digital realm, and she is actively involved in various community organizations, such as Maneuver Forum and District Day Community. She committed to promoting health and well-being among women, and specifically about menstrual hygiene. So she recognizes that menstruation is a natural and normal body process, but sometimes it's still shrouded in stigma and misinformation. And so she is committed to making sure that women have access to accurate information, and she's doing that by being our host for today. So thank you for being here, and be sure to follow Sanicle on social media, sanicle.us on Facebook and Instagram, or sanicle_US on Twitter. And be sure to use the hashtag and follow along on the conversation live. We're checking our social media team is going to be checking, reposting your stories. Feel free to take pictures of us. Feel free to take selfies if you were able to register ahead of time to get access to the I'm attending the Black Menstrual Summit image, and be sure to post it on social media. We are very social. So without further ado, Priscilla, take it away.
Thank you so much, Zaakirah, and good evening to everyone, or good morning. I'm not sure where everyone is from, but I'm honored to be your moderator for this event tonight. My name is Priscilla Siwela, and I'm here to make sure that we have a robust discussion with our speakers from various aspects of menstrual health, including menstrual hygiene products, menstrual health education, and the role of technology in managing menstrual health needs. So I just want to remind our audience that you are welcome to, we welcome questions and comments throughout the session. You can use the chat box or raise your hand, and we'll try our best to answer each and every one of those. So tonight we promise that our event is going to be more interactive, informative session with a diverse group of speakers. Together we hope to learn, engage, and build a better future where menstrual health is no longer a barrier to women's health and well-being. Without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker for tonight, who is, who is the chief of the Civil Society Unit at the Civil Society Advocacy Section at the United Nations Department of Global Communication, and also known as Auntie Hawa. I mean, that's what I know. I knew that she was called Auntie Hawa when I met her. I mean, technically, I met her. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Hawa Taylor Kamara Diallo.
Awesome. I was trying to say, please unmute me. Hi, everybody. I'm not sure where I am, but I have some like funky background music going on because I'm here with my mom looking at beautiful African clothes. So I don't know, are you hearing that music? If you are, then I have to turn it down a little bit. Are you good? Yeah, because my speakers have failed me. Well, hi, I didn't know I would be the first speaker. I was like getting ready to just sit back and relax. I want to say hello to everybody. I want to give out a shout out to a couple of friends who have joined. I think Wanto is here from Liberia, who's on our steering committee at the UN. I know Margot Lazaro is here, a long time NGO friend. And I also called in another friend it's my friend Zim Comfort Dondo, who does a lot of the work around young girls' sexual reproductive health and early marriages, because I think that all these people have something to say, because I think it's important. I'm privileged to be working in an organization like the UN, but what really interests me most is connecting with organizations like Sanicle, who are very close to beneficiaries and who are working with beneficiaries on the ground. So that's why I also invited these people in case they have something to say, also to complement that narrative of the United Nations. I think the UN is great. There are over 50 organizations that work in the UN. I humbly have been serving in the UN for 37 years. When I think about it, I'm like, yes, I started when I was in kindergarten. So don't worry, don't crack your head. That's when I got started, and I'm still kicking and going. And I've been honored to work for the Department of Global Communications that does all the advocacy stuff for the UN. So if you see a campaign, for example, like Act Now, about climate and what you can do as an individual. That's coming from my department. If you see the Verified campaign where they're telling you social media is great, femtech is great, but let's be sure that we're looking at misinformation and disinformation in terms of what we're putting out there on social media. Or if you just go to the UN website, it's my department that takes care of that. What I'm most proud of is the work that I do engaging with civil society organizations and also with youth-led groups. I really honestly, it's more than believe. I know and I have seen, I can testify to the value of civil society, in the work of the UN, especially in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. I mean, I'm sure everybody here is familiar with the goals. If you're talking about the issue we're talking about now here, menstrual health, I'm sure you know SDG 3 on health and well-being. You gotta know SDG 10 on inequalities. Of course, one of my favorite, SDG 5, in terms of gender, and many, many more. Because what we need to know is these global goals are all interconnected. So even SDG 1 on poverty alleviation has something to do with menstruation and messes of young girls. Now, Zaakirah, you had given me some questions and I was basically checking all these things out. So I'm trying to see what you asked me, but I'm going to say a bit about myself. I mentioned in the chat that I live here in New York by way of Freetown, Sierra Leone. Any Sierra Leoneans in the house here? No? Well, I'm going to make up for everybody else who's not here. So the thing is, I remember getting my my menstruation, or what I know it growing up, my period, when I was 10. And it was the year that my father passed away. That's about 49 years ago. And we had gone back to Sierra Leone from the US, and there were so many things going on. I don't even think I knew what happened. And I know my mom was, full of grief. She was busy. I mean, maybe I kind of remember going to my mom, not knowing what had happened, to me, and wondering if, I don't know, if I had, bruised myself or cut myself somewhere. And for the life of me, I can't really remember if I had really a conversation with my mom. Granted, so many things that are going on. But before that, I don't think I've ever had a conversation with her. So for me, personally, as a woman now, unfortunately, I have 2 boys, and I should be having that conversation with them as well. But I think what I have seen over the years is more personal advocacy within families, especially even in the global South. But especially also in the global North, where more and more we are aware of what menstruation is, and we're talking more about it, although I feel as if more needs to be done, on the personal and family level. Because if I take in Sierra Leone, I can 8 out of 10 chances, I don't think the young girls are being spoken to about menstruation, about sexual reproductive health. And they're probably not getting this in schools. I mean, you have, organizations of the UN, like the UN Population Fund for the UN Fund for Population Activities, UNFPA, that is in all around the world. I know they're in Sierra Leone that have advocacy, initiatives and projects and campaigns, to talk about sexual reproductive health. And I want to imagine that it would also include that social and mental well-being, but also menstruation as well. I know that they recently did a campaign, which I love, which is about my body, my rules, in terms of just the right that we as women, young and old, have over our bodies. So I think the UN is doing a lot. Maybe World Health Organization, of course, would be talking about this. But I think the key and where we're going to clench this information gap is going to be within families. So the role of civil society organizations such as yours, or entities, not just the UN, maybe for multilateral organizations, is to have, yes, initiatives and programs, but on the ground. I think it's great when we talk in a global way, but it's important when we are close to our beneficiaries and when we're understanding what the context is, which sometimes can be cultural, which can be social. So we make sure that we are involving these beneficiaries, also as frontline responders. So for me, I mean, that's something, that I think about when I think about my own childhood. And even as a mother, I have 2 kids, one is 18, one is 25. When I think about it, honestly, I'm ashamed to say I don't know if they are familiar with menstruation as men. And I know when my son, Christopher Chase, started talking about this issue, I was like, wow. I was taken aback, but I was also pleased because as an African man, as a West African man, as a Nigerian, I was blown away. That's why I've always supported this work, because more men also have to join this conversation and need to be aware, as fathers, as brothers, or just as individuals in society, maybe even as policymakers. I think it's not a situation that impacts women alone. We all know when women in some parts of the world are on their menstruation cycle, maybe they're not going to school, young girls, because they don't have any sanitary pads. Maybe they're not going to school, or in some cultures, they're kept outside of the house because of stigma. So I think that each and every one of us have some responsibilities in that advocacy and sort of pushing that envelope. Now, in terms of technology, I mean, I'm amazed when it comes to technology in what we're doing. And I think it has a long way to go in promoting the issue. And I think technology, even when I think about the production of sanitary pads, in some places in the world, it's still done by hand and manual, maybe a piece of material. But I mean, I think technology has been used also in terms of maybe improving the type of sanitary pads that we have, making the mass production of pads to the point where in some countries it's free. I remember living in Kenya and going to the supermarket and seeing sanitary pads for mere shillings that the average person, whether you worked at the UN in the Gigiri complex or you were from Kibera, you could afford. So, I mean, I want to think that technology has some role in that, and technology also in the advocacy part, also in just sort of pushing the information. But as much as I love advocacy, I have to revert back also to that kind of person-to-person connection, because, even now today in this group we are, you might have so many people, even here in New York City, who may not be able to connect. So I see technology as a complementary factor in the discussions and in the work, that we're doing. Those are the things that are popping in my head, but I know I had some other questions. I'm going to see if I can actually go. And one of the things you were talking about is collaboration. I mean, I've already touched upon that already, in the sense that even the UN realizes that nothing can be done on its own. That collaboration, I think North-South, local to local, for me is what is most important. That I say we, that we're all as individuals doing work for humanity, that we also need to realize that collaboration amongst ourselves, is something that goes a long way. I mean, we should be talking about this on a global platform, but also making sure that when all of us leave this platform today, that Priscilla, you're going to go back to Zim. I think you said you were from Zim or from Zambia, or Tosin, wherever you are, or Margot, who is on the West Side in New York, that these are going to be topics and issues you're going to integrate into the work that you're doing. Now, I don't want to talk so much, because if you let me go, I'll commandeer this whole session, because I am Auntie Hawa. But I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to just say thank you very much for really shedding a light and helping us to talk about this issue, which in my culture is still very taboo. And I think, I'm honored to be part of this space. And I want to thank everybody who's in Sanicle for being brave enough to broach this topic and to make us comfortable enough to give our perspectives. Thank you so much for allowing me the floor. And I pass it over to you. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you, Auntie Hawa. So we're on Zoom, so let's do some jazz hands to kind of celebrate the fact that she said so many amazing things and definitely was touching on the important things. And thank you so much, Auntie Hawa, for being here. And yes, let's say thank you, Auntie Hawa, in the comments. That continue to leave your takeaways and your aha moments in the comments, and drop the live streaming and screenshot this. We didn't have the virtual background for no reason, so screenshot your favorite moments. Let us know that you're watching. Let us know what your favorite takeaways and your quotes are. And so if you do have questions, we are actually, Auntie Hawa, where can people connect with you? Let that be the question. Where can
Definitely, you can connect with me on Instagram. I think I'm Hawa TK Diallo on Instagram, on Twitter, Salon TT Hawa. I believe, but Instagram is Hawa TK Diallo, Facebook, and the whole shebang, Hawa Taylor Kamara Diallo. And I'm thinking if I should put that email here because I spend most of my time replying emails and talking to people on WhatsApp. Hit me up on Instagram, and if you're successful, then you get my WhatsApp number. How about that?
That works perfect. Let's use Instagram and be sure to follow Auntie Hawa and also be sure to follow and tag Sanicle. Follow and tag Sanicle. That way we'll tag Auntie Hawa for you. So how about that? And so now without further ado, I want to make sure that if you are just now joining us, I am the Chief of Marketing and Events at Sanicle, and Sanicle is putting on this event for Black Menstrual Hygiene Day, which is the international campaign formed by Wash United. But we wanted to add a little twist here. We wanted to raise awareness for the disparities and the stigma amongst Black menstrual health and menstrual hygiene. And so be sure to follow us on the hashtag Sanicle BMHD and on social media at sanicle.us. And so I'm going to pass it back over to our host, Priscilla, and she's going to introduce our keynote speaker.
Thank you so much. So I'm just going to type the sanicle.us, their Instagram name, so you can go ahead and follow them. So I'm just going to type it in the chat. Just give me one moment so everybody can see it. That's their Instagram. So you can go ahead and follow them to get more information. Yes, that's it. So for our next speaker, he is a father and a lifetime Tulsa resident, the owner of the real Black Wall Street Tour Company. And it's a family-owned business with him and his daughter. He is also the executive producer of the documentary called Oklahoma. This, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Chief Amusan. I hope I got it right this time.
So before we do that, we're going to play some videos. So stick around for 2 minutes. We're going to play some videos that really welcome Chief Amusan.
Yes.
My name is Chief Egunwale Amusan. I'm the co-founder of the Real Black Wall Street Tour. I started this tour because I felt like as a descendant, it was a responsibility. And I really wanted to educate Tulsa on how this narrative stayed quiet for so long and how do we recover it? How do we reclaim it so that we don't repeat, the past? It's difficult to not repeat the past if you don't know what happened in the past. So I guess you could say in short, my mission is to make sure we don't repeat this. We want the whole world to know that as much as there was destruction here, there was development, there was growth, there was building. Tulsa's on the world stage right now. As we approach the 100th year anniversary, people are talking about the events of 1921 and what Tulsa represented and what Tulsa lost. So now it's time for Tulsa to recover. It's time for Tulsa to reconcile.
Our nation's history is a history of wretchedness and pain. We don't tell the truth of our history enough. And it weakens our very being when we don't tell the truth of our history, because the greatness of this country isn't that we have been bereft of violence and torture and terrorism on our own soil. The greatness of our nation lies in the fact that we overcame that. Yeah. That every generation did not give up, that they kept fighting, that they kept working, they kept struggling, they kept moving on despite unimaginable pain. And I felt the pain as I touched the scarred and charred bricks of a great community, a community that thrived, where Black journalists and Black educators and Black business people formed a thriving American town, was a light of glory and promise, but then was torched and burned. We are here because of the folks that never gave up. on the dream of America. Langston Hughes said it in his poetry. Oh, let America be America again, the land that never has been yet, but yet must be, the land where everyone is free. The poor man, the Indian, the Negro, me, oh yes. I say it plain, America never was America to me, but I swear this oath, America will be.
And now, without further ado, Chief Amusan, our keynote speaker.
Thank you so very much for the invitation. Thank you for the introduction. I really appreciate everything. Good evening or good afternoon or wherever you may be. It's good. I pray so. I'm truly delighted to join you all at the 2023 Black Menstrual Health Day Summit. As stated, my name is Chief Egunwale Amusan, owner of the Real Black Wall Street Tour Company and president of the African Ancestral Society. So I want to greet you as we approach the 102nd anniversary of the 1921 Tulsa Massacre. And I'd like to commend the leadership team at Sanicle for this unique collaboration and partnership. You know, your commitment to menstrual health, education for BIPOC and minority communities is truly a gift to humanity. Utilizing the wisdom of our great ancestral mothers and the science of femtech, the future holds great promise by way of maximizing the potential of women who have been conditioned really by a set of ideas based in ignorance. Much like history, we're subject to conform to a set of ideas that have been presented to us as opposed to from us. That's why we must define ourselves and our experiences by telling our own stories. 117 years ago, a remarkable legacy was crafted in what would become the historic Greenwood District here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And thanks to the pioneering spirit of O.W. Gurley and his wife, Emma Gurley, they purchased as much as 40 acres of land in what became known as the Greenwood District, or Little Africa. And eventually it became known as Negro Wall Street. Negro Wall Street was coined as such by Booker T. Washington, the first president and principal developer of Tuskegee Normal and Industrial Institute. That's now Tuskegee University. Most of you may know it by that name. So while visiting Greenwood, he witnessed how the dollar circulated in the Black community and realized it wasn't based on capitalism, but based in cooperative economics and self-determination. At that time, Black people throughout the state of Oklahoma possessed millions of acres of land allocated to them by the 5 civilized tribes that once owned them as enslaved people of the Indian Territory. This is before it became known as Oklahoma. The land allotments acquired after their emancipation would be responsible for the creation of more than 27 Black towns before Oklahoma became a state. I am a descendant of those whose labor and ingenuity built up the vast lands of Indian Territory. And once it became a state, we built one of the most enterprising, self-sustainable communities inside the United States. We literally built a city within a city. In the LeBron James documentary titled Dreamland, you will hear me describe Greenwood as Wakanda and oil as vibranium, because Black people built their own unincorporated town inside the oil capital of the world, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Many of these people, now known as freedmen, settled on lands that were rich with oil. Black people also amassed wealth from livestock and agriculture. So I'm an African-American with roots in the US and in Abeokuta, Nigeria. In 1996, I took my family with me to visit historic Olumo Rock. And if you want to look it up, O-L-U-M-O, Olumo Rock. It's the site of great resistance and beauty. But what moved me the most, besides the majestic natural beauty that was before me, was the way in which the community preserved the history, the legacy, and the land. As I reflected on what I witnessed, it reminded me of our own little Africa here in Tulsa, because it was a place of wonder also, graceful and majestic. As majestic as it was followed by tragedy on June 1st, 1921, when the promised land of Greenwood was burned to the ground. I recall doing some research on the Tulsa Massacre and viewing dozens of images of hundreds of orphan children. And in thinking about this conversation, I reflected on all the young girls I saw in those photos who may have started their cycle during that event. I thought about the number of stillborns that occurred during and after the event, the absence of clean water and cloth. Even clean sanitary cloths were a challenge. We can only be grateful at this point for women like those who created this platform, women who created clubs and women's organizations that passed on ancestral wisdom to help support the sacredness of women's cycles, especially during the times of trauma and tragedy. I would like to close by sharing a personal story about the power of women and girls having community and how fathers and other men can support menstrual health using tradition and culture. About 16 years ago, when my youngest daughter started her cycle, right before she started her cycle, her first cycle, I asked the elder mothers in my family compound, I was like, hey, what must be done? What do we need to do traditionally to support my daughter? Because colonization really damaged every aspect of how we celebrate or acknowledge the multiple biological rites of passage events that we experience. And if you notice, I'm very intentional about using certain words. Biological rites of passage. The women in our family said, listen, let's get together and let's hold a ceremony like we do at home in Nigeria. Let's hold a ceremony for her. And that ceremony consisted of those women preparing her for what was going to happen to her body, to alleviate the shock and the trauma of something unknown. They spent the whole weekend together, almost about 4 days, actually. They spent about 4 days together, and they stayed outside. They slept outside, camped out on the land, and they threw a party for my daughter. And they wanted her to understand that what she was about to go through and began going through was actually a rites of passage. It was something to be celebrated. It was something to be considered sacred, not secret. By having that experience and witnessing my daughter come out of that sacred space, I didn't even recognize my child anymore, because I realized in that moment, she was able to tap into her own sacredness and see her experience as not something that we marginalize or something that we trivialize or something that we say, where you make these blanket statements. Oh, women are crazy during their time of the month. If only we knew how hormones and all of these things affect our bodies, if we understood what oxytocin does, if we understood what dopamine does, if we understood what estrogen does, what testosterone does, we would understand that even men have a cycle. But because we're unaware of the dynamic and the biological rites of passages that we go through, we completely miss it. So what I discovered in understanding and studying the history abroad and at home was that we had certain traditions and values that we really need to return to. It's one of the reasons that I really support Sanicle, because I saw some of the work that they were doing on social media, and I thought, if we can tap into this and go beyond what's outside of us and help from the inside, we can really transform what menstrual health, mental menstrual health should look like. And it has to look like what my sister Diallo just said. It has to look like community. It has to look like personal one-on-one support. It has to look like community gatherings. It has to look like those things where we actually celebrate the fact that someone is going through a transition, and that transition may happen in multiple ways, as our host stated in the beginning of this conference. So the words that I share with you today are really to just connect, help us reconnect in a way that stimulates our culture, that educates us about who we are as a people. There are certain things we know inherently to do without somebody telling us to do it. Imagine if we developed these societies, these clubs, these institutions where women could actually do that and men could actually support that effort, because that means we too would have a greater understanding about these rites of passages. So I want to thank you, each and every one of you on this call, on this conference. This is really important work that cannot be understated. And we have to really, truly commit ourselves to the transformation of this movement. So I thank you again, and I wish you the absolute best in any future venture that you go into. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Chief Amusan, for shedding light about Black history. And we are also grateful for men like you who understand and appreciate women and what we go through during our time of the month. People call it that time of the month. But we really appreciate and your support as well. And thank you so much for sharing the personal story about celebrating your daughter. I feel like we should be celebrated. Like, it shouldn't be a taboo. It should be celebrated. People should actually make it, like a celebration like that, but it should be like a sacred something, not just a taboo, or people be like, oh, she's crazy. We go through a lot. Hormones, everything. Yeah, people will be like, oh, they're all over the place. We're not all over the place. It's just one of those days. But thank you so much. And as for now, I would like to give me one moment, sorry.
Actually, I got Priscilla. Before we do that, let's find out what people are thinking, right? Like, this has been an amazing conversation, and you know, we've had so many amazing speakers so far, right? Like, I want people to kind of share with us on social media. What question do you think people should share with us on social media, Priscilla?
I would like to know, like, how was it when you, to the ladies, how was it when you first had your first period? Like, did you tell somebody? Did you have the chance to learn? Like, as for me, luckily my mom was there. I think my mom is watching though. My mom was there, but I didn't know what it was because me and my mom, we never really had that conversation. Or my grandmom, we never really had the conversation. So when I first had my period, I just turned 13 years old and I was on holiday with my mom. I thought I got hurt. Like, I didn't understand what was going on with me. So I didn't tell anyone. But the thing was, I wasn't feeling any pain. So I thought maybe I got hurt, but it's okay. It will go away. So I kept like on changing underwear. And my mom, she noticed that I kept on doing that when she was doing the laundry. That's when she took me to the side, and then she now explained what was going on with me. So I really want to know if people, like, if you had the knowledge before or after you started your menses, like, we can just share it.
Yeah, that's a great question. And while we're waiting for the next panel to come together, I think for me, I was blessed to have the information before it happened. Now, it's different. You get the information before it happened, but then when it happens, it's still a brain fart. You still will forget because it's like, oh, it's really happening. And so it's just like when boys get, their voice gets deep. The same thing. It's kind of like, oh, it is happening, So the ladies, for sure, tell us your story if you're comfortable, and then boy, what was the first time that you realized that women were different in that manner? Great. All right. So now, I think now is a great time. We're going to go ahead and before we introduce Tosin, we want to remind you to interact with us on social media. And we also want to remind you that this is part one of a 2-day event. We are continuing this event in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it will also continuing to be streamed on our social media platforms. So be sure that you are following us on social media, especially on YouTube. Look for Sanicle Official, at Sanicle Official on YouTube, on Sanicle_US on Twitter, and Sanicle.US on Facebook and Instagram. So now it's your turn to go ahead and introduce who is our next speaker.
Thank you so much, Ms. Zaakirah. So our next speaker is the Chief Technology Officer for Sanicle, a prolific marketing and business consultant, and a talented problem solver, Mr. Tosin Oni.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much, Priscilla, for the introduction, and Zaakirah. I think today has actually been a powerful session already. Like, Madam Wantiawa, actually. She's the information she's given us already through speech, and then Chief Egunwale Amusan, the information you've given us, it's a lot to actually deal with already today. And I know this has actually driven the conversation forward a lot. Madam Hawa talked a lot about communication, the role of social media, how technology actually can help drive this conversation forward in terms of like product distribution and production. And Chief Amusan talked a lot about culture, wealth, integrating the whole menstrual circle and the communication of the efficacy of it through the society and through families, essentially. Sorry, my video has been going on and off. Let me start there. I have a little man behind me today. I'm actually babysitting simultaneously while getting this event done, so I do apologize a little for that. But that being said, thank you so much, guys, for joining today. And today we'll be having a main panel constituted of people from across the world. We have people from the UK and the US and over in West Africa to be talking. Prolific men have also made impacts within the community and in their specific walks of life. So we'll be having Mr. Kolawole Akinmuyiwa, Mr. Ogene Ogbodo, Mr. Olayinka Akinranti, Mr. Ibrahim Erogbogbo, and Mr. Stephen Yinka Oguntoyinbo. I hope I pronounced everyone's name correctly. So I'll open the floor for them to pretty much introduce themselves, and then we can start the panel officially. So Mr. Kolawole, please give us a quick intro of yourself.
Hi, y'all. Can anyone hear me? And everyone hear me? I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. I just had to dash down. I sent a message earlier that just my meeting took longer than anticipated. So, but I'm glad I'm able to join y'all today. My name is Kolawole Akinmuyiwa. I am here in Houston area. I'm glad I'm able to make it. This is such a, I don't know, it's such an uncomfortable topic to talk about, especially from fathers of girl child. But anyway, I'm a business developer here in the Houston area. I'm also a realtor. I also work for and own, maybe I can use that word, terrestrial TV station here in the Houston area. So we do more for the community, just to empower the Black community in the Houston area, and also change the narratives, that is being written about us, the Black people, especially those of us from Africa, coming from Africa here in the diaspora. So that will be my short introduction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kolawole, for that. It's nice to have you on the panel. Mr. Ogene Ogbodo. Mr. Ogene?
Oh, okay. So good evening, everybody. Pleasure to meet all of you. Please let me see a thumbs up if you can hear me, please. Oh, okay, great. So my name is Ogene Ogbodo. I'm from Enugu, an Igbo-speaking part of Nigeria. I'm a civil servant, a graduate of political science from University of Jos. I know so many times people always ask me, you are a political scientist, not a medical personnel. So why do you always talk about issues relating to menstruation and what have you? And for me, I have sister, I have friends in the class. From primary school till university days, I have a lot of girls in the class. So, and I understand what they go through every month. I know on different occasions where most of them always say monthly visitor, girls thing. So when we are growing up, being a product of the streets, we grew up in the slum area, so we understand what our female sisters, friends pass through. So when we were of age and we feel like it's important for us to give back to the society, we look at some of those most challenging situations some of our friends, our relatives went through when we are young. And this is where we find out that, oh, if that be the case, there is a situation that many people don't want to talk about menstruation. So if people don't want to talk about menstruation, we now go by the question, why? So finding out the why, we find out that the why is not sufficient enough for us to abandon it. And that is why we decide to go into this discussion from our organization. In our organization, we use different methods to keep engaging people, keep engaging boys and girls in how we initiated, we say play to break, where we use our football matches to engage schoolboys and girls about having discussion about menstruation. And currently we are running what we call dance to break, using cultural dance to engage boys and girls in having the discussion around the silence surrounding menstruation. Last year too, we hiked just to use to bring in people and have a discussion around this. Thank you, everybody, and I really appreciate this opportunity to be among people to share my experiences. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ogbodo, for the full introduction and pretty much starting the conversation, already talking about the role men actually need to play within the society when it comes to menstruation. Let's have Mr. Olayinka Akinranti, please. Olayinka Akinranti. If it's not around, Mr. Ibrahim Erogbogbo.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Stephen Oguntoyinbo, over to you.
Oh, you want me to speak right now?
Yeah, no, just introduce yourself, please.
Okay,
Thanks
hi.
for joining us.
All right, my name is Stephen Oguntoyinbo, and I'm a communication strategist, and I'm the lead communication director for Olayinka Communications based here, and I'm a social innovator and social activist. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you so much. So pretty much to kickstart the conversation today, we know hygiene is pretty much the first way towards preventing diseases. That's the general rule. And we know that information and communication has pretty much transcended the level that we have today. Like, it's gone global with cloud computing, access to things like 5G communication, 4G LTE, where almost everyone in the world right now, well, not everyone, but a lot of areas in the world are now connected. So information dissemination is a lot faster, and platforms like WhatsApp has also grown to become a very effective communication platform across the world. Where do we see the role of menstruation and how it can pretty much, we can drive the conversation as men to achieve the SDGs, to pretty much achieve eco-friendly world? And okay, so before we take that question, the way the panel will be set up, sorry, first I forgot to give my rules. So there will be questions directed towards specific individuals, and then there'll also be general questions to the panel, like the one I just raised right now, and anyone can take that question. And also, please, everyone from the audience, you can start taking your questions and submitting those within the chat. We'll collate those questions and we'll respond to the questions at the end of the panel. Thank you so much. Looks like Mr. Kolawole was about to pick up that question.
You just threw me on the spot. But no, I wasn't about to, but I would take it anyway, given that and Steve, it's good to see you. Priscilla, hi. So hey, the thing is,
Hi, Mr. Kola, good evening.
Hey Priscilla, how you doing? So now I believe we don't talk about it enough, right? It's not something we talk about enough. At the point, I had to ask my wife, what do I need to know about, menstruation, and, coming from, a father to a girl child or a female child, and you want to understand that we have platforms, not everybody's comfortable facing off with other people, especially in a topic such as this, right? I read in a comment that a girl felt like she was bewitched, and so she had to run. She kept hiding from her mom. And I heard Priscilla's story as well. And it's funny how this makes people feel uncomfortable when you want to talk about stuff like this. So now, if we have a platform such as your status, that's, we're talking about technology, and you have your status, let's say on WhatsApp. I don't know how many people you follow or follows you on your status. However, you have that many number of contacts on your WhatsApp status, on your Facebook, on your Instagram. You can post something relating to that people can read off of that. You don't have to necessarily be the one to confront anybody to talk about, menstruation or the period or that time of the year, they call it. A lot of people we just need to be comfortable enough to talk about it, but not everybody is bold enough, to talk about it. So you have platform where you can use, which is where technology comes in, where you have platform where you can use to communicate this, even if it's going to be a word a day, text or something, and if you're not comfortable facing up with anyone, you can have a live video of yourself, talk about something you're comfortable, you know how we do it, you talk about what you're comfortable, talking about to yourself or to the mirror, and then you share that on your status. You'll be surprised how many people you will have, or how many people can even share that with their contacts, and therefore you're getting the message across. And if you're not comfortable enough, you have your spouse to talk to about it, and let her be the bridge, between you and the girl child, to say, hey, why don't we talk about it? Because hygiene is one thing. I don't know if most women take note of this. Hygiene is something they need to understand when it is that time of the year. But again, you don't want to offend anybody, and so you don't want to say anything that is negative, and you don't want to be that person that that people would hate just because you talk about what should be talked about. So I think education is very, very essential. It is always right to put something out there that people can read. It does not matter. Like, I remember, Steve, you bear me witness to this one, when Biden became president. We were just playing with the Ashwebi thing, and before I knew it, it went viral. And I saw myself on Linda Ikeji, on blogs in Hong Kong, in Europe, and I kept thinking, oh, we were just having fun, but then that's the power of social media. You want them to understand panty liners. You want them to understand what pad is, having that pad thing. You want them to understand tampons. You want them to understand all of these things. And so an article that I read a while back stated that you can start talking about this when they can't even confront you. You can start talking about it like when they were like 7, 8, 9, when they start getting to that puberty stage, so that way you get comfortable. You bring them on with you. By the time they grow up, they are comfortable talking to you about it. I remember I was in Ife, OAU, Great Ife, whoever is here that's from Ife, and my sister asked me, and she said she was having cramps. I didn't know what that was, and that's the truth. I mean, I've had female friends, since I was little, but when you talk about cramps, Auntie, I don't know what that is. So, but I was comfortable enough to ask my female friends, within my age group, to say, hey, what's going on? My sister said she's having, they now told me, oh, let her do this, let her do that. And then, it's going to ease up. There's nothing to it. Let her know it's okay. And that's because they are comfortable talking to me about it, so I'll yield the floor for somebody else, to throw in the light to this. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really love the points you've brought up, especially when it comes to things like it says on social media, across things like your status, the virality of social media, the fact that you could actually just post something randomly and it can literally go global. Like, you can literally put that in front of billions of viewers, not even 1 billion, it's billions of viewers. I think that's a really, really insane and powerful effects that social media has actually driven into the world today. I'll pass the question up to Mr. Ogbodo next. Within the community, essentially, Mr. Kolawole has said a lot about communication, but as men, how do we break up, especially within the Black community, how do we actually effectively communicate? Because there's always the stereotype, especially within the Black community, of men being able to talk about this topic.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Toyin, for such an amazing question. Let me say, if we live in a world where it is women world, I don't think issues of menstruation should be issued that should be silent about, because women believe it is women matters, and when a man is available there, that is where the stigma or the silence comes from. So if that be the case, I think one of the best solutions is let the men start driving this home. Let me borrow from the word of Toyin, what he just said. From 2020 to date, every day in my WhatsApp statue, I always have what I do. First, I put up the number of the day. Let's say today is 144 day in 2023. So I put 144 over 365 days. Now I might come up with any discussion I want. Let's break the silence surrounding menstruation. So while I was in Enugu between 2019 and 2021, anytime I am a rotator, so anytime I go for rotary meeting outside my club, definitely people will start saying, Mr. Period is here, Mr. Period is here. So that means I always come here to tell them there is a menstrual hygiene campaign coming up in so and so day, and we need to talk about this. From YouTube, I learned how to make reusable pads. And I was teaching the girls in my organization, come, let's learn how to make reusable pads. So many occasions I will be in a car and I just start up a discussion, and before you know, I initiate it. I run a period-friendly office. In my office, you see pad in my office. If you come to my house, you see sanitary pad in my house. Last 2 years, before leaving Enugu to Abuja, I made sure that at least 10 of my friends, 10 male friends of mine, have to inculcate this spirit of buying sanitary pad and keeping in their house. And I always tell them, keep it in a place that whenever a girl comes, let this girl have this discussion to say, oh, what are you doing with pad? Then go on with the discussion. And if she's not bringing it up, ask her a question about sanitary pad that she's saying on a very open place in your house. Definitely you guys can start talking about it. And when she's comfortable with you to talk about the discussion, she can always have a discussion to be free with you. She can easily call you and say, oh, I am menstruating. I have seen so many occasions where some of my female friends will just start me up and said, what is woman leader talking today about menstruation? Because in some of my posts, I will say woman leader said this. So sometimes they will say, what is woman leader talking about menstruation? That's the power of social media. I utilize my WhatsApp status very well for that. Last year as a whole, I used my Twitter handle for this particular same campaign. They won over this. So every week we talk about different things about menstruation. And it keeps on involving that, oh, men can really lead this. When I started this campaign, I know some situation whereby some girls were like, am I trying to do this because I want to grow popular? And some of them was like mocking me. Some were laughing at me that, what can a man be talking about menstruation? And I always go with these quotes. I remembered a government official telling me that I am not a father. I am not a medical personnel. So why am I talking about menstruation? A mother telling me such, not just a mother, but a priest in the church or pastor, whatever, in the church, telling me such a thing. But but such wouldn't even deter us. So I think men in the African society, we can always talk about this. And that is why from us, we try to bring up different social activities so that people can actually go into that social activities. And by so doing, they can easily start having this discussion. We've used football, we've used hiking, we've used running like relay. And this time around, we're using cultural dance because we believe that, yes, this discussion must be passed. And if you look at my hand, this menstrual bracelet always live with me because in the menstrual hygiene platform, they said, when you wear this, you are passing a message. So for every 365 days, I go around with different menstrual hygiene bits. This is my own bracelet for 2023. And when this year goes off, I change the color to get another one. But every day I must wear a bead. Thank you very much. I yield the floor for another person.
Thank you so much, Ogbodo. You actually give us very, very great points. Becoming not just having the knowledge or just sharing it, but actually becoming an advocate and utilizing things like events, societies that you belong to already to actually share the conversation and drive the conversation around menstrual hygiene. But you also brought up a very major point, which I found quite interesting. The fact that you stock your house up where your person itself, apart from just being an advocate, you actually have the resources on ground to actually help. That's hygiene products for women or ladies or pretty much everyone who's menstruated. I'll pass it over to Mr. Stephen. How do you think we can actually, as men in the society, provide hygiene products and make it, I don't really say provide, but more or less make it more accessible to the women, whether it be convenience centers, stores, stadiums, schools, pretty much in different society, in different walks of life. But how can we as men further provide menstrual hygiene products to the women or to those in need of it? Over to you, Stephen.
Okay, thank you so much for having me on the show, and also Steve, Mr. Kola on the show. This is a very sensitive conversation that I know a lot of us and a lot of men are not interested in conversations. A lot of men are not interested in this conversation. And I think one of those key things over the years, being involved in a lot of campaigns as regards reproductive health, which is reproductive health, which is also, similar to what we're talking about here, is a lot of people lack information, and which is really very important. And one of those things also we need to do is to engage the younger generation in creating more awareness, in terms of creating more awareness. And one of those things we could do, for me as a person in the communication field, is to create IEC materials. You know what I mean by IEC materials? Meaning information. IEC means information, education, communication materials, like pamphlets, like doing short documentaries, like doing short dramas, playlets that can also create more orientation to younger generation about menstrual health. And like I also say, like one of those things that we can use to do is it creates more accessible in terms of parts for students, is to find a way of engaging in terms of creating like a fundraiser where we can also have more accessible parts being given to students across different regions. It broke my heart sometimes when I heard in one school in a community in Nigeria that were using clothes and tissue paper as sanitary pad, and for me, this can give them more accessible to diseases and germs, and so for me as a person, I think that one thing that we need to do is to also engage with CBOs, community-based organization, in creating more awareness, engage with different NGOs, and also create more awareness. These are one thing, but like I said, pretty much engaging with policymakers in terms of creating more accessible funds for us. Like I spoke about fundraising. Fundraiser is a very key thing, strategy that we can use. Mr. Kola spoke about how we can use social media toolkit in terms of engagement. But here we're looking at how do we have accessible parts being given to schools. Is we can create a fundraiser, and their platform, Pollination Grants, is there. Pollination Grants will give you $1,000. You can probably, if you say you're doing this kind of project and doing this kind of project, like I said, specifically, how do we get this thing across to them? If CBO is giving us excuses, if the government are giving us excuses, we all have a role to play in terms of jointly creating more hygienic menstrual cycle for these young people, and creating more menstrual hygienic, health for them, in terms of creating like a fundraiser platform. And there are different kind of fundraiser platforms that are out there for us to create and join hands together in creating more force and creating more menstrual hygienic, safer community for them.
Thank you so much for those points. Those are actually very major points which you've brought up. I think being able to drive the policy side of things to be able to actually access grants, distribute menstrual health products to people in need when they need it is one of the biggest ways by which men can actually support, especially when we look at the global landscape currently and men still majorly control the policy side of things. So it's gradually changing, and we really love the fact that gender equality is finally taking over. But in a lot of places in the world, men still drive that. And on that note, I'm actually trying to bring another point up here. What do we think is going to be open to everyone? A way is by which you mentioned the fact that people can actually get diseases thanks to the fact that they don't have access to good menstrual products. And Mr. Amusan actually also mentioned about the impacts where women, or pretty much individuals who are menstruating, impacts the global economy. So we're trying to look at the landscape here where what impacts and how can we further drive the impacts of global economy for women or people menstruating who actually lose time, whether it be to complications of being on their time of the month or not being able to access the specific things that they need. What impacts that is driving on the global economy and how we can further address that aspect of things. Mr. Kolawole, do you want to take that?
I was going to ask you to actually reiterate that question.
Okay, sure. So we know during the time of the month, especially in a lot of places in the world, women, ladies, people menstruating don't have access to quality hygienic menstrual health products. That results in direct downtime where they either have to miss school, they either have to miss work. The contribution to the global economy is being affected as a result of these women. Also, things like when they actually get sick, it becomes a bigger problem where we're actually losing equitable manpower. How can we further contribute to solving this problem / curtailing it?
A very valid question. Thanks for asking it. One of the major things is, I would say education, right? You kind of overemphasize that education. You have to, and then creating what each and every one of us here on this panel, and of course the organizers and people in the medical field are doing towards providing or providing a solution to such. Steve raised a very valid point when he was talking about when infections, with using cloth and tissue paper, just a sanitary pad, that could just immediately what came to my head was that, like, oh, infection, but then how would they know? They don't know anything about it. So how would they know? And the only way well, not the only, but one of the ways we can, contribute towards that is to create, not just creating an awareness, but also to come together and probably make a donation towards, the drive, and make a conscious effort to say, what, if this is what it's about, we need to do something about it. And the moment you start realizing that, then the moment you start seeing people, we can sponsor people. If we come together, we have enough funds and maybe write grants. If we get approved for it, we can sponsor people to go into those remote areas to educate people about, this menstrual health, and so they know what to do. And also, like someone sent in the chat room, you can buy a lot of pads and send it over there, where you probably have a community leader or someone we can trust to take a lead role in, bringing awareness to menstrual health, in these communities, and not just talking about it, doing something about it, giving out, and someone said the period passport, giving out pads, sanitary pads to these people. Constant supply would help. Eventually you will let them understand this is how much it costs. And if we can get it at the cost to them, in case we run out of cash to actually provide this to them for free, we can give to them at a discount. We can, also be an advocate for it through, the government to create a policy that would enable others to contribute towards it. Maybe it's going to be in the form of a tax write-off for businesses so they can contribute towards it, or just in education aspect of it, just to give them the awareness, the knowledge, the know-how of what to do when that time of the year comes or when that time of the month comes. That would be my, my little contribution towards this. Maybe any other person can, shed more light on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that major contribution. Does anyone want to add to that before we take another question? Okay, moving on. Before we continue, please, if you have questions, please send them to the chat box. We'll be collecting those questions and asking them at the end of this round. We should be ending very, very soon. The next question will be, looking at what Mr. Amusan actually said earlier on, I liked the way he brought about the fact that it's a transition for some people and it should be culturally celebrated the same way it did for his daughter when she started. Do we see this as something that we can actually implement and actually drive within our society, where we take that conversation around this becoming something that people celebrate versus a taboo that it is now? And do we see that actually becoming a thing? Ogbodo, do you want to take that? Mr. Ogbodo?
Yes, thank you so much. Let me just add a little to the first question as discussed by Mr. Amosun. I think one of the few things we need to do is in many of the government institutions and private sectors here in Nigeria, they lack period-friendly sanitation facility. I know in 2021, when the president signed Order 009 into law and said every public and private place must have a period-friendly sanitation facility. 2 years after the line, what has changed? Nothing. So now, for us, we feel like it is very important that we have a period-friendly workspace and period-friendly sanitation facilities in everywhere where we work. Now, I know I have had a lot of ladies talking about what we call Ibu Okuku. It's an Igbo language which says killing of fowl. And some people always use that word to say this is a time where we welcome women into the womanhood. That means whenever a woman have the first menstruation, they were supposed to be a celebration. And what is this celebration? They bring on women together, according to how Chief have already explained it. They bring up women together and kill a fowl for this person. The meaning of this fowl is, oh, welcome to women's world. You are now a full-grown woman. And if you go to some of our cultural and religious belief in some part of the northern part of Nigeria or in Tifland, they said that whenever a woman see her first menstruation, she's woman enough. So the misinterpretation there, it is now what many people do not understand. They will now tell you that because you are now a woman, some people will now say because you cannot get pregnant, run from men. So it is at this stage that this discussion becomes very, very key and important. That the fact that you menstruate, yes, you can get pregnant now because you are a full woman, because the blood that flushes away is making way for new egg if there is a sperm. But many people just believe that just a touch, you are pregnant. That touch should be called what it is. Tell the girl child that when you have a sex, unprotected sex, at that stage, it is now when you become pregnant. But stop telling them that when you have a touch. Many of these girls live with this stigma for years, especially when they are menstruating. So at that period when you are to celebrate them and welcome them into the woman's world, make it clear for them that no, this is sex we are talking about and not just touch. Because when they go with this information and keep growing with it, they pass it from one generation to another generation. Now we have a very big problem. You go to schools, you find out that girls who teaches fellow girls do not even have enough information to teach It is what they learn from either their senior sister or their co-friends who started menstruating before them. It is now a big responsibility for mothers to take from childhood. Whenever your children are anything from 6 years old, I recommend that there should be a family discussion outside the father and the mother, but women having this discussion to bring in their children together and explain to them that in the next 3 years or 4 or 5 or 6, you should be expecting, yours might be 3 days, yours might be 4 days, but expect this thing that you might see a blood. We have had lots of experiences where some girls, we have to finish a whole roll of tissue on their first experience. Some of them will shout and think they have injured themselves. Why a lot we hide it? Because they don't know what is happening. And you know Africa, where we are coming from. You know how we believe in too much superstition. When you see on certain things you don't understand, you are scared of them not calling you Obanje, that is a marine spirit possessor, or they're not calling you Amusu, which is winch. So because you don't want to be stigmatized or such, you can easily run and hide it. But if mothers start having this discussion and breaking this silence earlier by celebrating their child in the first process, I think this would easily be one of the best solutions to the problem we face. Thank you so much. I yield the floor for another person.
Thank you so much for those major points that you brought up. I like the fact that, because I'm actually unaware that there are other parts too within Africa, other parts of the world where people actually celebrate starting of the menstrual cycle. I think driving that celebration, as you mentioned, is a way to actually turn the narrative and make people, or ladies essentially, coming to the light, and also emphasizing the role of communication. Education, especially in that circle. I'll bring up a little more controversial topic. We know there's a big intersectional experience by individuals in different sections of the community, and that's basically religious sectors, the LGBT community, the Black community, which is the primary focus of this conversation today, and people who are incarcerated or disabled. How do we change the prototype essentially in this circle and pretty much change the narrative where these individuals can be treated or brought into the light of what we're trying to do? Does anyone want to take that question?
Yes, I would like to take that question. And I have an answer to this. And pretty much the other time we spoke about how do we create more engaging. I don't want to even speak about engagement right now. I want to speak about how do we create more level of orientation. And that is where the place you spoke about the religious sector the other times a few minutes ago. And this is where the media also have a role to play. The media have a key role to play in terms of sensitization. And looking at the stereotypes and a lot of things, there are quite a number of stereotypes in some community. Some girls don't want to come out when they have their period, or probably they have unexpected period and they have spillover all over their clothes. And they are so embarrassed with this. I've seen incidents like this on several occasions. But like I also say, the media have a role to play. The entertainment sector has a role to play. And communication, like engaging communication in terms of, having, and that's why I spoke more extensively about the IEC material, which is called Information, Education, Communication. I know there are short films that were being created some years back, some short films on reproduction, which is more interwoven around, with all this conversation is also more interwoven around the reproductive health. For a girl child to know about your health, the age of puberty, when the red blood come out. Some parents will say, oh, that thing is coming out, and some children are being scared. And we have our parents who are not even giving them the right information, and I know Uncle spoke about this a few minutes ago. And so like I said, the home is a strong pillar for the nation. The home, the family has a key role to play in terms of engaging and educating their children about the reproductive health. And this is what a lot of African parents shy away from. A lot of African parents shy away from teaching their children. A child will go to the mother and say, "Oh, see, I saw blood." And they have a way of giving them some fabu. Fabu means they have a way of giving them some, trickish answers that are not true. It's like a parent telling a girl, "Oh, when you get closer to a man, you get pregnant." So for me, is the orientation system, the family orientation system is very wrong. And we hide under the culture. We hide under the name of the culture. Or either we hide under the name of, "Oh, we are born again." So the truth about it is that we need to get the right information from the right source. Most of all this younger generation get the right information, get the wrong information from different sources. So, but like I said, this is really very important in terms of engaging and getting the right information. Like I said, the media has a role to play. We can use different toolkits in terms of engaging with these girls on menstrual hygiene and doing short skits or films, comedy. Now people who are very crazy about comedy, they watch comedy than even watch movies. So the comedy skit makers also have a role to play in terms of reorienting the value system of these people. So this is something I think we could do, and in creating more orientation. And this can be diversified in different languages: Igbo, Hausa, Swahili, Yoruba, decentralized into different communities for them to know about this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I like the way you pretty much broke down the question and pretty much give us a very, very solid answer to that, and utilizing media to get that narrative really out there. So I have one more question, which will be thrown out to the team, or to the panel. What do you guys think the role technology and AI would play, more towards the aspect of AI? With the rampant, pretty much there's no way you want to put out the news today. 1 out of probably everything that comes up in an hour has to do with AI, machine learning, and whatnot, the likes of ChatGPT and the rest. How do we see this actually impacting the conversation we're driving at today?
Okay, I think I'll go for a very short period. As with Wikipedia, it is information that we put in there that people receive, as long as it's vetted, tested, trusted. ChatGPT, whatever, it's based on information fed on social media. They do grabbers and they grab all this information, they compile it together. The more information we push out there, the more the grabbers will grab to be able to generate response to people. And these are things, that's where education comes in. And we need to do a lot more writing. We need to do a lot more talking about it, just so people can be comfortable. It's garbage in, garbage out. If you don't feed the system, you're not going to get anything out of it. And if you keep allowing somebody else to do the narratives for you, or the narration of the whole ordeal for you, then that's what you're going to get. So if you have a story to tell, I think, which is where media comes into play as well, because if you Google anything today, even with ChatGPT, Google AI, all of those things, it is what you feed that you're going to get back. They can filter it to sign, but then if more positive feeds are going into it, we're going to get more back. So, and you can use that to generate, and these are tools you can also use to write your own story. It's the question you type in for the ChatGPT to generate for you, even if you can't think it yourself. By the time it gives you the first generated list, you can do a regenerate, By the time you compile everything or choose from here and there, you grab from here and there, and you write something about it, and you do a short skit, or you can do a little write-up or something, people will get the story eventually. Look at the way they're pushing out same-sex marriage, satanism, or whatever it is. And I'm not disputing or disqualifying anything. It's none of my business, however anybody feels about their own culture. but we can do the same. We can do the same. You can't impose on me. You can't, tell a story about me without my consent. It's just what we feed it that we're gonna get back. That's just my thing about this AI, this whole AI thing. It's a powerful tool if only we can use it in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I really love the way you put the word, it's garbage in, garbage out. It pretty much lands off what you feed it, and what we feed it will pretty much be the results that will be disseminated as it actually continues to grow and evolve. Which is where I'll quickly bring up what Sanicle does a little bit on the extra. So Sanicle, in collaboration with some of our vendors / partners, we've been able to give out things like impact boxes to children or teenagers who pretty much need the menstrual box or the menstrual materials during the time of the month, who can't have access to it either because of funding or lack of reach or access. Pretty much we help to bridge that gap. And also the bigger part, Sanicle is also a company that focuses on actually disseminating information, which is part of the reasons we have this event going on today. So we're actually pushing out the narrative, trying to change the narrative, and also provide information on the digital landscape, where we can actually teach and educate people all about menstrual health. And it's great to actually have a lot of people, especially men in the community, that are able to help us drive this conversation this way. To wrap up the session, I would like everyone to please just give us a way to reach them, whether connect on, whether it's LinkedIn, social media or whatnot, so we can further continue this conversation on there and give way to the next session. Thank you so much, everyone. So let's just take it, Mr. Kolawole, how can we reach you and continue this conversation after this?
We're talking about, I was typing it actually. So
yes.
It's Kolawole Akinmuyiwa on Facebook, and I have 2 Facebook accounts. I didn't want to go to the route of being like an idol or something. So because I have a lot of followers, so and that's on Facebook. So I have two accounts. Both of them say the same name, but you can tell with the display picture that there are 2 different accounts, and both are me. So I could be reached on there. And on all of that platform, I go by PAPPYK, Papi K7. I'll write that down. And also KEA, my initials, as you can see on there. So that's it on all social media platforms. It's on their LinkedIn, name it, Twitter, just name it. I'm there. And so, and yes, my Instagram, oh my goodness, my WhatsApp status, as funny as it may be, I try to, because people, when you're too serious, they stop following you. So you have to throw in jokes, then slam them with something that they need to read. They won't have a choice but to read it. They want to know what it's about. Then you post 2, 3, 4, 5 of that. Then you go back to funny jokes, then you sensitize them, and then you bring them back to what you need them to hear. And that's the way it's been working for me. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Can reach him on those channels. Mr. Stephen, I know you've posted in the chat box too, but if you just want to talk real quick.
Okay, yeah. Okay, my you were asking for my social media handle. For my Twitter is at Talk Village, as in Talk Village. Talk Village INT. My Facebook is Stephen Oguntoyinbo, and my LinkedIn is also Stephen Oguntoyinbo. And then also when you want to find me on what's that one, TikTok, I'm also on TikTok, and it's Stephen Oguntoyinbo. And you want to see me, get me on YouTube, I have a channel, a TV channel on YouTube. It's called Olayinka TV. And so that's pretty much my handles. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that. Mr. Ogbodo again.
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Ogene, OGENE _Ogbodo, OGBODO. That's my Twitter and Instagram handle. And for Facebook is Ogene Ogbodo Neke Ambassador AMB. Neke is my hometown, so I try everything possible to promote my hometown. And for Mr. Afpad, you want to donate, Town Crier Initiative, we are super excited if you can give us, we walk around giving menstrual hygiene kits to at least 100 girls every month, girls living in rural community and urban slum here in Nigeria, Enugu, Abuja, and Onitsha in Anambra. So we always do this together, and it's an amazing section having all of you here. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Padma, for such an amazing opportunity. As I always said, I am committed to making sure that every day, at least a girl or a guy can easily learn one thing about menstruation from me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Ogbodo, and thanks for the commitment and becoming a real-life ambassador to the cause. I really love that, and thank you so much, everyone. Well, my name is Tosin Oni. I'm the CTO for Sanicle. You can find Sanicle on social media across boards at sanicle.us. It's the same for LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all channels. And my personal handle is Tsino, and that's TSCINHO across all social media platforms. We have a second account on Instagram also for @SageOni. That's SAGEONI. And you can find me on Facebook with Tosin Sage Oni. Thank you so much, everyone. And back to you, Priscilla.
Thank you so much, Tosin. And I would like to thank everybody who came on here, Mr. Kia, Mr. Steven, and Mr. Ogbodo. I hope I'm saying these names correct because I'm not so good with pronunciation. So yeah. And before I say what I want to say, I would like everyone to just write down their socials in the chat box for people like me who doesn't really get names there. So it would be nice to just see it in the chat so we can actually follow you, because we might follow the wrong people. So please just go ahead and write down your socials in the chat box so everybody can have access to it. And I would like to thank everybody, like I said, for sharing very insightful knowledge. And I would like to thank the men, well, we call you superheroes now, for sharing your thought and also working to push this message forward. Thank you so much. And Mr. Ogbodo, I really appreciate you for putting out there that people can actually use the reusable pad. Not a lot of people know about that. And I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for putting it out there, because not everyone has access to good sanitary products. So reusable pads is also a very good way to go. And thank you so much for saying that. And as Auntie Hawa said that she mentioned about promoting civil empowerment, this will also help our brothers and our fathers to help the women in their families as well. So I would like to thank Auntie Hawa for that. Thank you so much. And over to you, Ms. Zaakirah.
Yes, and thank you everyone for being here. Now we're not done yet. We actually have a surprise for all of the speakers. So before we go in, I want to also acknowledge those who are not in the US. Thank you for staying on longer and engaging in a super amazing conversation. But before we let you go to the breakout room in this Zoom, if you're in this Zoom, or go to our YouTube channel to watch the live video of Dr. G. Africana and the Ghana panel, we have a special video surprise. And so before I have Roxanne bring that video up, it's a token of appreciation for being an ambassador for Menstrual Hygiene Day. We could not have this conversation without you. We could not have this event without you. And so as a way to show our token of appreciation, we wanted to induct you into the ambassador, the Hall of Fame for Menstrual Hygiene Day. And please continue to be that amazing ambassador that you are by having a conversation. And without further ado, we're going to present the videos. And as soon as the videos are done, then continue to engage the conversation on our YouTube. Look for Sanicle Official on YouTube and the Black Menstrual Summit for the world premiere of the Ghana Roundtable Conversation, the woman's perspective. All right, Roxanne, take it away. Thank you to all of the ambassadors, and please continue to follow the conversation by using the hashtag MHDay2023. And yes, you will get your certificate. Don't worry, you are going to get your certificate, okay? So now we're going to head over to the YouTube. So if you're not already following Sanicle on YouTube, be sure to go. But if you're right here in the Zoom, you get to choose the breakout room, and we're going to stream the video into the breakout room so that you can also interact with each other and have your own conversations with each other, continue to exchange contact with each other. So this has been an amazing virtual kickoff. Don't forget that this is only part one. We are continuing back on YouTube tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central Time, which is 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and do the math for every other time zone. And thank you for continuing to be ambassadors and continue to share your stories about Menstrual Hygiene Day. Thank you so much. Roxanne, let's go ahead and start the video and share the video to the breakout rooms.